The Johannesburg Stock Exchange firmed up on Friday trade after the local markets was closed for the Human Rights Day public holiday. Analyst at Daily FX Zain Vawda joins us now to unpack the broader market developments today. Good evening, Zain. And I think let's start with the big story of the day being market Eustace's death, coming as a shock to all. How are markets reacting to those news and what now?
Good evening, Tukozo, to you and the viewers firstly. I think, look, global markets themselves and even the JSE today has enjoyed quite a positive day and as well positive week on the whole. Not so much movement in terms of what we're seeing from the Marcus Eustace fallout. Obviously, I think that is more a separate issue at the moment, not really affecting the JSE as a whole. And I think on that Marcus Eustace topic, I think today we did hear from the FSCA saying that they do intend to proceed with their investigations into other people that are considered, people of interest there around the Steinhoff saga. So I think that is a positive, especially for global sentiment as well, for market sentiment as well, to improve, enforcement action and to show that South Africa as a country, is good with enforcing these, corporate governance structures and so on, because these are things obviously that, are really important moving forward as well. So I think on that front there, the FSCA statement today does give a little bit of clarity. However, until we see some movement on that front, I think this is still going to be a lingering question for people, as there is a lot of, discussion from, citizens of the country around whether this was just a ploy to escape accountability and whether we will see some form of accountability around the Steinhoff saga. So I think that's going to be an interesting thing moving forward regarding Steinhoff in particular.
Absolutely, a developing story there, Zain. And on the international front, we had some central bank meetings in this week, and next week the Reserve Bank having their MPC meeting. Overall, how did the markets and or how are those meetings in preparations of those interest rate decisions moving along?
Well, obviously, we had, like you say, quite a bit this week in Tukozo from the central banks. We had the Federal Reserve from the US, we had the Bank of England, we had the Bank of Japan as well, and the Swiss National Bank, and all of them stuck to a rather dovish tone there, speaking about, rate cuts in the second half of this year, something which most market participants obviously did, foreshadow anyway. But I think with the recent uptick we have seen in global inflation, this was a concern heading into this meeting. And we noticed that in markets as well over the last couple of weeks, we did see a bit of caution, particularly in stock markets as well, after the rally that we had earlier in the year. And that obviously now with this dovish tone that we had, we are seeing a risk on sentiment again, global markets gaining quite significantly this week, of course, and that obviously with the JSE as well benefiting from that, and obviously the JSE on its own benefiting a bit from the metals and mining sector quite a bit as well with that elevated gold prices. And I think obviously heading into next week's MPC meeting here with the Reserve Bank, we also had SA inflation this week, which ticked up slightly. So even though we did hear that, dovish tone from global central banks, I do expect interest rates to stay the same this coming week. And I think looking at the SA Reserve Bank's monetary policy moving forward, I think if we are going to see any rate cuts, I think that might come after we get something from the US Federal Reserve. I don't think we will see rate cuts before then. So in my mind, I'm looking at rate cuts, the earliest for the Reserve Bank here in South Africa to be around August. If I'm being honest.
Well, thank you for those sombering news there, Zain. Let's just wrap the conversation with a quick look at just how global markets performed in this week, the local bourse as well as the Rand.
Yeah, sure. Obviously, because like I mentioned, the JSE, it has been obviously, like I said, a lot of caution over the last couple of weeks. So a nice little bounce there towards the end of the week. And a lot of it today, obviously with markets closed yesterday here in South Africa, obviously markets reacting to that comments on Wednesday night that we got from the US Federal Reserve and that dovish tone there. Like I said, obviously feeding into that risk on sentiment, and that obviously has fed into local markets as well. Unfortunately, when it comes to the Rand itself, we have seen a little bit of a dip there for the Rand, obviously back up to that 19 Rand versus the US dollar mark there again. And that's kind of interesting, as we did expect some dollar weakness, which did come in actually on Wednesday and the early part of Thursday. But since then, we have seen a bit of recovery on the US dollar. And obviously on that USD Rand front there, the exchange rate, I also expect there a little bit of stickiness moving forward for the coming months. I think the 1850, 1950 area, or maybe even 18 towards the 1950 mark might be sort of a range play that we might see over the coming weeks until obviously we get some movement on these rate cuts, hopefully towards June or so. And until then, I do expect this little bit of range-bound trade set to continue.
Well, thank you so much for that update, Zain. Of course, that's Zain, who's an analyst at Daily FX.